Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at an important book. It's one of the most important legal books around. It's from the Common Law Library and it's a publication from Sweet & Maxwell and Thomson Reuters. It will be known to many practitioners and in fact probably today to more people who are unrepresented litigants. The reason I'm mentioning this book is because the Common Law Library titles are where you find the law, and we produce these book reviews and the accompanying videos on the basis that it's to inform people of what is available should you have a particular problem. This book that I'm looking at today is called Clerk and Lindsell on Torts, with the general editor of Michael A. Jones. It's now in its 22nd edition. It's been around for a long time. I've used it extensively both in practice and as an academic, and I find it invaluable. Now, Elizabeth and I have considered the book and had a long chat about it, and our title for the review of the 22nd edition is The Classic Authority on Tort, now in a 22nd edition. Now you notice I use the word tort and it says torts in the title. There's a reason, because tort is a civil wrong and torts are the specific types of liability attached to a civil wrong. Let's have a look at the book first of all. It's a very big book. It's blue this time round. There's the front and there's the spine. There's nothing on the back. I mean, you can see how heavy it is, and it runs to well over 2,000 pages, 2,300 odd pages. The index at the back is incredibly detailed and it's by paragraph numbering. So the first of the numbers is actually the chapter number, then you have the paragraph numbering after that. And as I've indicated, the actual index itself is very, very substantial, and it starts, when I find it eventually, it actually starts on page 2215. There is, to go with this, a legal taxonomy from Sweet & Maxwell, which is always worth looking at because it explains how the index actually works. And as I said, this is where the law is. Now, the front page, let me just show you the main front page there. That's the front page itself. And these are the other titles in the Common Law Library series. Very expensive books, but they are where you will find the law. You should find a lot of these books in your reference library as well. Now you can see that's the detail about the book, and then this is the huge number of people who are involved in it. As I say, the general editor is Michael Jones. He will probably be known to many of you for his legal textbook on tort, which I've also reviewed. Then you've got a list of the actual editions. The first edition came out in 1889, and there's a publisher's note to go with it. There are supplements which go with the report. Then there's a preface. As you can see, the book is very difficult to hold. The preface is written by the editors in September 2017. I'm recording this in the summer of 2018. There's the table of contents, very detailed all the way through. And for each of the chapters, you've got the name of the person who's responsible. So Jones starts the proceedings off, and then we run through all the way through, right through to chapter 32 on limitation there. Then, of course, you've got the basic information. Then we get to the table of cases. Again, very large number of cases running all the way through. This is a case, it's a wonderful subject, tort. And of course it is a subject where the case law is of primary importance. Then table of statutes. Then after that you've got table of statutory instruments, huge amount of information here. Then after that we've got secondary legislation, that's European legislation, which is covered there. And that won't go with Brexit date coming up in March next year, 2019. That won't change things much in the short term anyway. Then you've got the treaties and conventions. There are a few of those that are relevant. Then we get into the actual book itself, and you can see, as is the style with the Common Law Library, you've got an index at the front of what's actually in the book. Then you've got the paragraph numbering, which you can see there on that side, and then of course what you've got, you can see it even on page 1, you've got some footnotes, and all the way through there are sometimes very substantial footnotes to give you the detail that you need. As I say, it's a very, very heavy book. I don't like using the word Bible, but that's really what it is. It's actually the fundamental work. And I found it extremely useful to use this because it's important in practice, but it's also very important academically, because there's a lot of argument which is of an intellectual calibre, and a calibre which I think is very appropriate for undergraduate studies. And I think undergraduates should bear in mind very carefully all the books in the Common Law Library series. Clearly Chitty on Contract is one of the leading other books, but this is a particularly important one. So what do we say about it? Well, we say this. For academics and law students as well as practitioners, Clerk and Lindsell on Torts is by far and away the definitive legal text on virtually all matters pertaining to torts, that is, civil wrongs. And it's been accepted as such since the first edition came out in 1889, and it was edited at that time by obviously J.P. Clark and W.H.B. Lindsell, and the names have stuck. And that's one of the great things about law. You get the names of the individual people from all those, frankly, centuries ago now. Think about Chitty on Contracts, Archbold, and all the other names directly associated with the works. We've got other reviews in other areas too of the Common Law Library series where the same thing occurs. And of course it's important therefore to recall that the world as we know it has changed radically since 1889. In some sort of monumental understatement probably by making that claim. But yes, there were trains, but no planes, no automobiles, nor the correspondingly necessary infrastructure. And the telephone was a novelty, as were the very first moving pictures, not to mention the very idea that women should have the vote. And you can see therefore the perspectives historically. Equally, it is surely a spectacular understatement to say that there's been a tsunami of social, geopolitical and technological change since the final decade of the 19th century, and a work therefore like Clerk and Lindsell basically updated 25 times over the decades is certainly a thought-provoking indicator of the gradual but relentless pace of change that has occurred in the legal landscape. And it's to be congratulated, in fact, in my view, that the publishers, Sweet and Maxwell, continue to take this task on. This book is part of their Common Law Library series, and the latest Clerk and Lindsell will undoubtedly be welcomed by all, certainly by civil practitioners, obviously judges, academics and undergraduates I think will find it, and law students will find it very, very helpful, and it'll be welcomed with open arms, especially because of its vast and complex subject matter, which is presented with such commendable clarity. And I have to say the depth is there too, because you can in certain instances cross-refer this book to other books, but the depth is there in one volume, and that is quite outstanding in my view. Now one has to say that virtually every aspect of torts is covered over the 32 sections which comprise this hefty volume of over 2,300 pages. And the first three sections are written by the general editor, Michael A. Jones, and deal with the principles of liability in tort generally. That's the general principles of causation and general defences, followed by coverage, for example, of areas such as deceit, trespass and damages. And subsequent chapters deal with matters like vicarious liability, negligence and professional liability, as well as product liability, occupiers liability, employers liability and public service liability. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, because virtually everything that you're looking for will be there, and then you can move on to some of the more specialist areas depending on what you're actually looking for. But this is the first of the one-stop shops, if I can put it that way. Also covered, for example, are areas such as statutory intellectual property rights, together with passing off. And since the previous 21st edition appeared in 2014, say the editors, quote, there have been few legislative changes, and it may be that Parliament has had its eye on matters European rather than domestic, they add. Though at this time working out the implications of Brexit for tort claims is an undertaking for the future. And as I've indicated, there is going to be change, but it's not going to happen very quickly. They do cite, this is the editors, however, the Trade Union Act of 2016 and the Social Action Responsibility and Heroism Act of 2015 and more. And they also point out that if Parliament had been relatively inactive, the Supreme Court has been very busy. The book is therefore replete with all the relevant case law. And as I've indicated, like the law of evidence and criminal law for that matter, there's a huge amount of case law authority in this area. And as is the case with other volumes in the Sweet and Maxwell Common Law Library, this classic work of reference, despite its size, offers the advantage of ease of use. There's a detailed table of contents and an index which plus no less than 350 pages of tables which include the cases, statutes, statutory instruments, the civil procedure rules, rules of the Supreme Court, European secondary legislation, and also a table of international treaties and conventions. And the extensive footnoting throughout contains a wealth of very detailed references which you can use depending on how much research you require. But what I would say is that you will find the basic rules set out without looking at the footnotes for the much more greater detail. But that's very much the style for all of the Sweet and Maxwell publications. Let me conclude by saying this, that for civil practitioners in particular, Clerk and Lindsell has always been, and will no doubt continue to be, an indispensable guide to the intricacies of tort. As I've indicated, it's a one-stop shop because you've got everything here, and then if you want to go off into particular areas thereafter, you've got the specific torts that you can look at. A big thank you anyway to everybody who's been involved in this task. This is where the law is, no question of that. And if people say, where is the law? You can find it here. We do have this concept, which is absolute nonsense, called ignorance is no excuse, the law is no excuse. Well, the fact is, who's going to know everything that's in this book alone about one area, substantive area of law? The answer is you can't. But the reality is that you've got as much as you can in this. And of course, they make, as publishers Sweet and Maxwell and the Thomson Reuters group, they make our lives a great deal easier by assisting us at all levels. That's from the undergraduate to the graduate to the practitioner, barrister, solicitor, to the judge and the academic. They give us a great deal of assistance for which I'm indebted. Now, the date of the publication is cited at 2018, and there are, of course, cumulative supplements. Let's just have a look at one last look at the book. It's very heavy. Of course, it's a hardback. There it is. Very much the style. Let's just open it in the middle. There are dividers to help you. I'm not quite sure where the divider is here. It's actually on duty of care. We just open it there. Wasn't planned, I hasten to add. You can see the paragraph numbering there. Chapter 8 and then page, this is part 91 of it. Then you can see how much by way of footnoting there is as well. And as I say, just to go back to the index again, remember the index is by paragraph numbering. It's a very substantial work, and I'm delighted to have been able to review it. So a very big thank you to all concerned, especially to Michael Jones and all the other people involved. I can't mention them by name. Many of them will be known to you, but a thank you to all of them. I'm most grateful on behalf of everybody. This is where you need to look if you've got a problem with tort. Thank you. Bye-bye.